The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome everybody to Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit, brought to you by Blue Leaf Naturals, CBD products, blueleafnaturals.com, a Kentucky proud company. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to our new show, Body and Spirit. Tonight we're talking paranormal body and spirit. We have the boys from Spirit Mechanics on, Steve and Brian.
How's everybody?
And they got rid of the cat.
We got rid of the cat.
We had to get rid of the cat.
And actually, everything's went really well tonight. I just want to point out to everyone, if you follow, especially my wife, on Facebook, we have a new puppy. We got one of those Christmas puppies that after the people get it, they realize, oh crap, I have a puppy. And 2 months into it, so we adopted a Christmas puppy, and and he's quite vocal. So I was a little surprised that we did not get interrupted during the previous hour. But the night is young. The night is young, everybody. We're going to be talking tonight about something that I know a little bit about. I've encountered it. I've dealt with it in a way. But I know there's a whole lot that I don't know. And we are talking tonight about spiritual attachments. First of all, how many types? I know spiritual attachment is one of those terms that gets thrown about in the paranormal community as a blanket phenomenon. In other words, this is attached to that he's attached to her. That thing is attached to so-and-so.
Right.
It's one of those terms that I wish we would break down, where the grandmother that's following you around the house because she doesn't like the way she thinks you drink too much is different from the guy that is pissed because you lost his, or you buried his grandfather's watch, or the little critter that wants to suck your energy. It's one of those terms that I don't like. Let's get into it first. In your all's catalog of ideas, what type of spiritual attachments are there out there in the paranormal world?
Well, like you said, spiritual attachment is honestly a blanket term. That means anything that is attached to you that honestly doesn't belong to you. It's an outside influence. So there are a million different variations of it. You have everything from spirit guides or family members, ancestry, things like that, all the way to different types of, as you said it, energy-sucking critters. And there are different classifications, at least for us. So typically what you're going to see, at least with us, there's three different categories.
Yeah.
There's going to be more of the spirit guide / ancestry, which has a lot to do with your family, your friends, lineage, things like that, like grandma calling you through the house. Then there are physical attachments, and then there are emotional attachments. Physical attachments being what actually start to affect the body.
You'll get random pains, crawling sensations. That's something that's very common. with physical attachments. Emotional attachments, a lot of commonality with it is emotional issues, obviously, as the name suggests. So you get into more of depression for no damn reason. And if my language gets too much, let me know.
It's cable. Don't worry about it.
We're on cable. Uh-oh.
So you fellows worry more. I'm learning not to say you all because that's too Kentucky for the mass population. So you gentlemen tend to like to categorize it about I would say the effects of the attachment rather than the mechanics of it.
Right. Yes.
See, in my past, let's start with. I don't like. Now, this is me. I don't like putting my spirit guides or even a technically benevolent family member in one that I believe that, okay, spirits that cross over and then come back to help us out and everything. I don't like to put them. Attachment is just such a dirty word. It's such a mean word. So I don't like to put that in there. But let's start with human ghost attachments to a person. We'll start with that category. Now, one thing, even that falls into two different types. Correct me if I'm wrong. I always called it a hard and soft attachment. A hard attachment are the ones that I would say probably would fall into your emotional category. Because it seems like when you have that hard attachment, they're actually feeding off of you and exchanging way too much information, however you want to look at it. Where a soft attachment, I've seen this a lot with children. A ghost will follow a kid around. It might bug the piss out of the kid. Might bug the piss out of the kid, scare him and whatever, but it's not, they're not feeding off of it. In other words, it's more of a communication thing rather than a symbiosis.
Right.
Either way,
hey, look, you see me, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. When we're dealing with that type of attachment, let's just start there, whether it be hard or soft. Are there any ways, you kind of touched on it, first of all, if a person, what would make a person suspect that that's going on?
One of the main things is, especially, you'll find this in a lot of kids, and even those who are sensitives that might be a little bit older, but having perpetual dreams about a family member, like it completely reoccurring. So it's not just a situation of, well, I dream about this person from time to time because they enter my thoughts. It's this person has passed away and now I'm thinking about them and dreaming about them on a consistent basis.
And usually they present information or things during the course of the dream or the symbology of the dream that actually provide communication. So that's usually what goes down with that particular. You'll find a lot of activity in both negative and positive attachments. They'll communicate in dream state.
It's, just because it's the easiest place to communicate. You're less likely to deny, you're less likely to have major inhibitions while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So it's easier to actually communicate and get the point across. Also, some people have, different kinds of clairsentience. So people will start to recognize scents like perfumes or granddad's favorite pipe tobacco, or
that's a common thing is smell of tobacco, different colognes or perfumes. The smell of like cedar when there's not a cedar chest in your house. Those are big indicators that there's something around as far as an attachment.
But now, am I right in saying that there's a difference in we'll call it a visitation versus a attachment?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a difference between a visitation and an attachment. The biggest thing with an attachment is they come in both positive and negative, whereas if they're coming in to say something, to give you information or whatever, they're presenting something, they're giving something, and then they leave. As opposed to an attachment, they attach and they stay.
Right. It's a situation of, here, I brought you this is yours, I have to leave. And that's a visitation. I'm only here for a brief moment, and it's only to give you this. And like Brian was saying, the attachment comes in where they don't leave. They don't, they're anchored.
But what if you have a visitation that gets pissed off because you're not getting the message? They want to leave, they want to get their business done, but somebody like me that's just a dullard when it comes to psychic messages, does it matter? I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, from what my experience in that, it comes into the whole place of, if they can't leave, it's not because it's their choice.
It's because it's your choice.
Yeah.
And that can turn into an attachment, but it's more on the emotional end.
And it's not necessarily negative either. It's, you can't let them go.
One of my favorite attachment stories is, I have a friend who was a paranormal investigator, still is, but he just moves all over the country, and he has a ghost that's attached to him. And at first it was kind of annoying, but then he figured out whenever he would investigate, this ghost was kind of like, hey, this is my buddy, and he's all right. And he was getting great, in other words, it helped his investigations. Now, he did tell me that the drawback to that is, on EVP sessions, he had to learn what this ghost sounded like, because he'd go into a house, is my house haunted? And he'd go in and get EVPs, and he's like, no, that's ours. That's not yours.
Actually, we've encountered that.
Yeah, a couple times.
There's been a couple of people who have had those kinds of attachments, and they were family members. We had one case, I can't remember, it was like there's a brother or a father or something like that. It was here in town.
Oh, here in Nicholasville?
Yeah, it was that one in Nicholasville that had squirrels in the attic.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember the details of that case because it's kind of fuzzy. That's the only part of the case that I actually remember, is I hear scratching in my wall, and it's squirrels.
But it seriously was. But she had an attachment that was actually a family member of some kind. It was a male family member, and we were actually using a spirit radio, and this guy's voice comes in plain as day, 100%. You could hear the man talk, and he kept mentioning her name specifically, and then kept actually talking about who was in the house, and then kept going, why are these people in your house? And it was just kind of hilarious. And she's going, that really sounds like so-and-so. And we're sitting there like, that doesn't help us.
We're trying to gather a little bit of evidence based on your paranormal experiences, and it's this other attachment that has nothing to do with these things over here.
So, I mean, we've encountered that ourselves on a couple of different things. The big thing with those kinds of attachments, though, is even though they may be a good thing, the biggest thing to remember about the difference between an attachment and a visitation is an attachment is a symbiotic relationship. You said it yourself. It's something where the entity or person is getting something by being next to you, by being with you, by trying to communicate with you. And in return, you are getting something out of it, just like your friend. A visitation is when the person comes in and does not want to hang around. They don't have any intention of making it an actual relationship. They're just there for the moment. They're there to give you information and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, we're going to take our first commercial break. You're watching Body and Spirit brought to you by Blue Leaf Naturals. Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit. When we're talking about the actual attachment now, when we're talking about a human spirit, assuming you're not like my friend and who finally decided it was worth keeping the ghost around, I personally don't feel that any ghost that hangs around too long is a good thing. When we're talking about hanging around a person. Now, if they want to stomp around an abandoned building, more power to them. I don't give a shit. But when it comes to something that actually interferes with life, interferes with the living, I don't think it's a good thing.
Right.
But at the same time, when there is an attachment, isn't there more to it than usually just doing a crossing prayer, for example?
Yes. When it's an attachment, especially if it's a human attachment, so, grandma, Uncle Ben, your best buddy from high school, Ben. Uncle Ben. We're making a Spider-Man reference, but no, Pete, don't do it. But when you have something like that, you have to figure out exactly why they're wanting to stay. If it's a humanoid attachment, and you can still appeal to them, it makes it much easier, and it makes it easier on both the party who you're trying to remove the attachment from, as well as the spirit itself, when you can figure out exactly why it's wanting to stay, why it feels it can't leave.
What you're basically looking for is that sense of reconciliation when it comes to a human attachment. So finding out why they're there, and that's the big thing to remember is why are they there? And if you can find out why, you can start to reconcile those feelings that they have, because they still have emotions, they still have feelings, even though they're not here on this side. So
it's the reason why parapsychology has become such a big thing in recent years. I mean, it's always been a fairly major part of things, at least as far as we've been concerned.
Yeah.
But it's more mainstream now because of this. It's because the more you're able to actually communicate with the spirit, at least in this form, an attachment, the more you can learn, and the more it actually understands that you understand that it's human.
Yeah.
When you actually humanize the spirits and you're able to talk to them correctly, you're able to move them much easier.
Move.
Well, to me, in a more of a humanoid attachment, it's more of a move.
Right. Okay.
Because at that point, look, man, you need to move on. This is what's going on. You really shouldn't be here. We get what's going on with you, and it's so much easier to cross them over at that point. It doesn't have to be forced. In a lot of cases, people have a tendency to call upon archangels to move people, and it's not necessary. They're willing to go once they realize that someone understands them.
Now, Okay, I touched on it earlier, and that's where we're going, everybody. We're going to the nasty little critters of the spiritual world. But even when we're talking about human, I always call them human based, because I'm never sure if a spirit is an actual, okay, first of all, I'm going to use the word ghost. I'm never sure if a ghost is the entirety of the person's soul left behind. I think sometimes it's just bits and pieces of the soul left behind. But that being said, where I'm going with this is, now this is where I got into the hard and soft attachments before. To me, a soft attachment, we've covered that. A hard attachment is when they really burrow into your aura, if you will. In other words, they're tweaking you. Now, in your experience, I believe that a human spirit sometimes will tweak you because they get off on it. They want to get an emotional response. That part I think we agree on. Now, yes. I see a lot on the ghost hunter shows where people go, use my energy. Can a human-based spirit use an actual person's energy?
Yes, but only under certain circumstances.
Like the circumstances that you just mentioned, when they're freely offering it up. I mean, that's a free ride right there.
So there's that, or in the case of your buddy that you were mentioning, that has the attachment that hangs out and tells him what's going on in the house and all this other stuff. He has an understanding. It's a relationship, and that's what I was saying earlier about him getting something out of it. He's able to feed off of your friend's energy, and in return, he gives your friend information. Also, if it's more like the family member or the friend who's passed or something like that, they can feed off of you in an empathetic way, which is a lot of the times when you start to have the emotional issues from the human attachment. But that empathic link allows them to subconsciously drain you. You're no longer having to give permission. They're linked to you from here.
Yeah.
Now, the follow-up question, now this is one of those things that I've never understood. My theory has always been that spirits I need to quit using the word spirits. To me, it's not interchangeable for the sake of this discussion.
Right.
That when someone dies, when they shed their mortal coils, as they say, and whatever's left behind, this doesn't seem to me like it would be just a natural thing. Is this a learned thing they do, or is it a natural ability? Is there a guidebook? That's the thing I've never been able to wrap my head around, is there are so many benign ghosts out there that the worst thing they will ever do is push a little emotion on you because they want you to know their story. And then we've got the ones like we've been discussing just now that literally feed off of a person. Do you have any insights on, is that a devolvement, an evolution? What is your opinion on that?
I think it's more of a circumstantial sort of thing.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's not so much. And this is just my personal opinion. I can't speak for Brian or anybody else, but it's more of a necessity sort of situation. What is it that I need in order to achieve this goal? Do I need to feed off of this person's energy in order to either make them understand or to get enough built up to where I can do what I need? Or is it more of I'm going to, softball a little bit of stuff. I'm going to talk to them in their dreams. I'm going to be a little bit of a whisper or a nudge here and there until they acknowledge me. But I don't really think it's necessarily something that there is a point of de-evolution or evolution there.
Well, it's like, us being corporeal, we have the ability to move matter that is solid. So, like a DVD case or a book, we have the ability to manipulate our environment, whereas an entity or a ghost or a spirit, a human spirit, can manipulate that environment because they are energy based. So, to me, it's almost like it's not an acquired skill. It's just something that is natural.
Okay, now before we get to the nasty critters, we'll take our next commercial break. Then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about material attachments. Everybody, you're watching Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit, brought to you by Blue Leaf Naturals. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit, where we deal with paranormal and metaphysical topics and guests. Okay, now I'm only going to touch on this because to me it's not a big deal. But the whole John Zaffis haunted collector thing, and actually there's this entire cottage industry now of haunted items. It has sprung up where people have museums of both famous and not famous of haunted items. I've encountered it once that comes to mind. I'm not going to say that's the only time, because I mean, arguably you could say if a ghost hangs around in a house just because it was their house, that it's a similar process. But I've always had this thing about, the one I encountered, he was attached to a freaking kitchen cabinet. One of those old-timey kitchen cabinets, and it was allegedly, according to the ghost, which ghost will lie to you people, like it or not, his story was that he was going to give it to his wife-to-be for their wedding present. He died. I don't know how. And so now he's stuck with a kitchen cabinet. What a way to spend the afterlife, hanging around a kitchen cabinet.
Right.
That would suck.
This is my entire world now.
That would be awful.
First of all, now you all do a lot of this type of work. Is that haunted item type thing? Is that something you all have encountered? Is it common? Is it as common as it would seem if you watch TV, or is it fairly rare? What's your opinion on that?
It is
kind of middle of the road between rare and common. Just to be honest with you.
Well, there's a freaking wishy-washy answer.
Huh?
That was a wishy-washy answer.
Wishy-washy.
Well, I mean, okay. So ghosts you see all the time. The rarity to me would be something like a demonic attachment. That's the rare.
Now those are rare.
That's the rarity.
Right.
Now in between the common, the common like ghost or something like that, which you can't walk 30 feet without bumping into one, as opposed to what we call a cursed object, but it's not necessarily cursed. It's just a term that we use that's easy for us to understand, or an attached object.
You've got anchor objects and then you've got cursed objects. Cursed objects are the ones who, have a quote-unquote demonic attachment, whereas, an anchor object is just something
like the kitchen cabinet.
Right.
Right, okay. Well, let's move on to the critterage now. New word for everybody, critterage. Now, you've already thrown out the word demonic attachment. Now, I do, in my little paranormal world, there are lots of things running about lower than demonic beings that also act as attachments. First
Yes.
of all, let's talk to it in the physical sense. Now, the first time that I encountered one was fairly early in my paranormal career, if you will. This thing basically, I want to say attacked a girl, but I think it just was able to tweak her emotionally to the point where she lost her shit. That would be a better way to put it.
We see that
Now,
a lot.
the people that dealt with it, two people that both of which I highly respect for their abilities, described it to me as spiritual, and this term has stuck with me: spiritual wildlife. In other words, it wasn't really an intelligent being, but at the same time, it wasn't not intelligent. There, I'm using one of Brian's wishy-washy terms there.
It had sentience, but it wasn't hyper intelligent.
Right.
Yeah, in other words, and the reason we called it spiritual wildlife is basically, now when we're dealing with this, in my world, correct me if I'm wrong, these things have one goal, and that is to feed. Now,
Yeah,
whether
absolutely.
they're feeding off emotions,
100%.
energy, or whatever. But in other words, he doesn't mean you any harm, but screw you.
Yes,
Right.
your food.
You're a
Yeah.
meal. I'm the lion, you are the gazelle, and now you're meat.
And
Now, when-
in that sense, I mean, there's a couple of different kinds, and we found that we can break it down into, talking about the physical attachments. We can break it down into what's referred to as, at least in our group, scavengers, which are entities that actually feed off of latent negativity or stagnation. So they feed off of the damaged parts of the aura and the psyche. And yes, to a certain degree, that can be a good thing. It's when they overeat that it starts to become.
No, wait. Okay, now tell me right now, how can that be a good thing? What you described to me just now sounds fucking terrifying. I'm sorry.
Well, it is.
Well, it is.
It is.
Well, it's about think about a leech. A leech only filters the blood out. They only eat the damaged part of the blood. Is it scary as fuck to have a leech attached to you? Absolutely, it is. But, is it a necessary thing in medicine? Because there are sterile leeches in medicine that they use to get an infection out when it's in a sensitive area that they can't get in with antibiotics.
I'm familiar with that, but okay. Then let's take it down to 5th grade level.
Okay.
Back to what you originally said about, now, because we're not talking about leeches here, we're talking about spiritual wildlife critters, semi-sentient beings, whatever. How can that type of attachment, be a beneficial relationship for the host?
Well, like I said, it's only until they start to overeat. Because all they do is basically eat the dead and decayed parts. They take it's as bad as it is to say, and this is going to be off-putting to some people. It's kind of like putting maggots on a necrotic wound. The only thing that these scavenger types of attachments are actually going to eat are what's already dead or has no ability to energetically regenerate. It's when they begin to overeat and actually start to eat the living energy or pure energy that it starts to become a problem.
And those types of attachments are few and far between, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to eat their fill and then move on. They're going to go somewhere else.
Now I'm going to kind of frame a question from the chat room.
Okay.
We are first of all, the answer to the question is no, we're not. Because when I say critter spirits, no, I don't mean actual spirits of critters. But that being said, when we're talking now, I'm just going to throw this out there, and when we're talking about an animal spirit,
Okay.
most of the time that I've encountered this, the attachment is the other way around. In other words, it's not that the dog is attached to its previous owner, it's that the previous owner is so attached to the spirit of the dog that it won't let it loose. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Yeah,
I am wrong.
absolutely. We actually had a client about it was about 6 no, it was about 3 or 4 months ago.
About 3 or 4 months,
Yeah, she had the ashes of her dog in her living room, and I know for a fact I saw the dog in the house walking around, and it was like, okay, it's about this tall, it looks about like this, give the color of it.
How'd you know?
And pulled a picture out and showed me the dog, and it's like, you don't want to let him go. You need to probably go ahead and let him go. Let him go to, cross the Rainbow Bridge. There are some that, ascribe to that particular philosophy, or let that particular spirit cross over.
Right.
So it totally is it's totally the owner of the pet that won't let them go. That becomes the attachment to them.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Cool. So I framed that correctly, but okay. Now back to I guess I understand what you said about how it could be beneficial, but you say it's actually rare that the scavenger type attachments move on to where they're causing damage.
Yes, it really is. I mean, it basically has to be a point where this thing is severely malnourished. I mean, it has to be so far beyond starving that it's become ravenous. And that's very rare. I mean,
kind of like a dog with rabies, that kind of deal.
Right. There's always the chance that these kinds of entities, because a scavenger, it's like a coyote or a buzzard or something like that. They eat because they have to, but they only eat certain things. And it's like he said, if it gets rabid, if it comes down with some kind of some kind of hysteria or different things like that, distemper, different things like that, it's going to lash out and try to eat whatever it can, because the fight or flight thing kicks in and it's going to fight, or
Right, and then those types of things, the only thing they know is to eat. So
now I'm going to clarify a little better for the person in the chat room. People like to, and I'm one of these people, I like to visualize things.
Okay.
So when we're talking about these type of attachments, to me visually, and to answer the question in the chat room, no, it's not going to look like your dog. No, it's not going to look like any type of animal you've ever seen. To me, I mean, they look like, the way I pictured the one I encountered, it was something out of a horror movie. It was just ugly and chupacabra-ish and just...
Yeah.
So, now, is that the... I mean, when you all encounter these things as psychic type people, do you get a visual on them in your third eye, however you want to look at it? Do you see them?
For us, a lot of the times they show, these particular types show as kind of like a lamprey. So
they literally look like giant leeches.
Yeah, they look like leeches, but they've got nasty tendrils coming off of them. We try.
Yeah, that was something that was described to me.
Because it's TV. Huh?
The one that I encountered, that was something that was described to me. That was basically when I felt it the very first time. I can't say that I really saw it. It was more after it, I kind of pictured it. But it was described as having tendrils, and in the process of breaking this attachment, they went through the physical motions of removing the tentacles. Yeah. Now, I ask about that because to me, being an energy type worker, I'm more of a zap guy. I'm like, fry it and be done with it. But he said no. He said we could do it that way, but he said actually the visualization of us going through the process helps us picture what we do, and also helps the person understand what we're doing.
That is 100%.
That is the reason why when we definitely zap it, pull the damn thing off in one stroke, or pull it from a distance. That is a definite thing that can happen, but it helps us to be able to visualize it and 2, do it correctly. Because if we miss a spot and don't pull the correct thing off, there could be a piece of it left, which can cause other issues down the line. That's 100% correct.
Also,
go ahead.
It's also like your friend was saying, it helps the person being affected as well, because it gives them a physical something, a physical focal point. They are actually removing this from me physically. I am watching them struggle, or I'm watching them pull this thing away from me. So it's also something for their mental state. Well, could they have left something behind? Or, well, I really didn't feel anything from when they were energetically pushing, as opposed to, I watched this guy literally grab a hold of this thing and strain against it. Or I watched this person go through the motion of a cutting motion to cut this thing off of me. And then I felt it. And that right there is the big thing. A lot of people need that visual cue. They need that focal point before they're going to acknowledge that anything true is going on.
I gotta see it to believe it.
Yep.
Now, the follow-up to that is, okay, when you all go through what you just went through, you break the attachment. What do you do with it? What do you do with an attachment? I know what the people that I witnessed did. What do you all do? I mean, do you kill it? Do you banish it? Do you put it in a cardboard box? Well, I mean,
all of the above?
Yeah, actually, depending on what it is. We have some people who are of the witchcraft persuasion to make us spell jars. So sometimes we'll put those in there. Other times we use our alchemy and break them down into what they actually are, as just energy, and then put them back into the flow. There are other times that we banish them to another place. That way, they're not an unhealthy attack. Well, it's kind of like what the right word I'm looking for?
It's like relocating a wild animal.
Yes. They're not rabid or anything like that. They're just trying to feed, so they need to go over here because they're still part of the natural process.
Ish.
So, go ahead.
No, it's a natural process-ish. I don't. There's just certain things in the spiritual world that I don't like. We're going to take our final commercial break. Everybody, you're watching Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more. And welcome back to Body and Spirit, brought to you by Blue Leaf Naturals, CBD products, blueleafnaturals.com. Now we're getting ready to move to the top of the food chain. Now, the reason I kind of took it in this progression is because I wanted people to recognize that everything is not a demon.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, no.
But if they watch a lot of TV, they'll think that it is.
So many times.
Oh my gosh, it's a demon!
But I do think these spiritual wildlife that we've been talking about, I think a lot of times, even experienced paranormal investigators mistake these for demonic attachments or demonic oppression or whatever.
Right, I agree, yeah.
It's kind of like, what do you do when something that's bigger than you comes into your territory? You puff yourself up and make yourself look bigger.
And that's literally what's going on.
Yeah.
How can I make myself seem scarier, seem stronger, and the big word there is seem. It's not that these things are as strong as they come across. It's that they know which buttons to push to warrant that emotional flight syndrome. I have to run from this thing. It's bigger than me. I have to be afraid of it. It's bigger than me. And it's like, 2 foot tall, running around trying to chase you with a pillow. I'm going to beat you up, and...
Now I have a completely different friend. I actually have 2 or 3 friends in the world. Now he used to be he was a minister, and I'm not going to say what church it was because I do not remember. But they used to just turn out exorcisms like it was nothing. He said that was what they sent you to seminary for, to learn to do exorcisms. And I'm like, no, you just can't do them full time. There is no way. But I think what they were doing, now this is my opinion, is that they were basically, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, they were doing exorcisms on what we would call, you and I would call, spiritual wildlife. Because they do carry some of the same qualities. We'll use that word.
Symptoms.
Symptoms.
Yeah, we
That's
like
much better. Now, when we rise to the level of something demonic, first of all, give me your definition of what you would call demonic, a demon.
Okay. That's all you, brother. He's the expert in our group, so.
Basically, what a demonic, quote unquote, and I am putting that in quotes, because as we've already discussed, the likelihood of something truly being a demon is very, very, very fucking rare. But the whole idea behind a demon is a demon, and still quoting, what a demon does is it preys on vice. It is something intelligent enough to prey on your weaknesses directly. And it's more than just, I'm going to needle this point until I have enough to go on. It is I know exactly how to push this person's buttons in order to let me inside of them. And it comes down to open-ended questions a lot of times. It's the reason why you find a lot of dumb, and I'm sorry about this, you find a lot of dumbasses with quote-unquote demonic attachments that use shit like Ouija boards because they don't close the session. They open in their questions so anything and everything can come into them.
That's not to say, and then I'm going to preface this, that's not to say that a Ouija board is not a great tool if you know how to frickin' use it.
That's the reason why I'm talking about the do's and don'ts, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it always comes down to that vice in its specific addictions: gambling addictions, gaming addictions, sex addictions, substance addictions. I have to have this thing. Why won't anybody let me have this thing? If there's somebody out there that will give me this thing, I will do anything. I wish I had this. And then all of a sudden you have it, don't you?
It's right there in front of your face.
I do have a question from the chat room that goes along with what we were talking about in the last segment. When you remove one of those, of course, we said sometimes you just send them back to the earth. Now, when it's one that you relocate, for lack of for the descriptive term,
right?
Is that just going to crawl along and look for the next person? I mean,
9 times out of, well, and I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, I'd say about 50-50. It's a 50-50 chance that it's going to end up on another person, but most of the time it's going to end up in a place where there's a lot of stagnant energy, like abandoned buildings, like that's a big hot spot for those types of things.
Right. So waiting for the next unlucky ghost hunter to walk through, right?
Well, look, if the unlucky ghost hunter knew how to protect themselves, they wouldn't have to deal with
it. So that was a little point blank, but
I mean, that a lot of our stuff is a lot of our things anymore have been educating paranormal investigators on how to protect themselves. What, the do's and don'ts as far as, you see the process a lot on, let's say, like ghost hunters or something like that. You can't come with me. Anything that's here, you got to stay here. And we add extra steps on top of that, specific stones to carry, different prayers to use before you go in and after you leave, different, like like a salt bath. Something as simple as a salt bath will pretty much get rid of anything that's on you, on your outer aura. So it's about being able to educate yourself further beyond, I'm just a paranormal investigator. I know if I'm an investigator, I know that there's something there, or I have a suspicion that there's something there. All right, I need to take the steps in order to protect myself, in order to make sure that I'm safe, my family's safe, and everything like that. It's just a part of the job, you know. And if you're not taking into consideration that part of the job, you're asking for things to attach to you, and that's the reason why the point blankness of it. It's not that I'm trying to be rude or anything. It's just there's a lot of people who, you know, I see a couple of these celebrity investigators do not so smart things, and it really agitates me when we go to a home where there's people really suffering and really having a hard time, and there's nothing they can do about it. And there's this person who has the education and who knows what the do's and don'ts, but still doesn't do it. Anyway, sorry about the tangent.
No, I absolutely agree with that sentiment, and I think honestly, sometimes you can't tiptoe around the issue. So don't worry about. I don't worry about being blunt. I try to frame it in a polite way. But the no, yeah, I thought you did fine, because I do feel strongly about that. The problem that we've had in the paranormal industry, if you will, is that there are so many people, and I would argue that they without knowing it, they're like me, that they investigate for years and never have anything attached to them, never have anything follow them home, never have any of this stuff happen, and they assume that because it hasn't happened, that it's not going to happen to anyone.
Right.
And I think that some of us, and this is where I feel that even early on in the paranormal world, I was told that this is the category I fall into. I'm Teflon, baby. Stuff don't stick, and it's because of the. I don't know if it's my energy that is reflected through my personality, or if my personality creates the energy. I think that's probably a whole nother show.
It'd be the personality. I mean, your mental state has a lot to do with whether or not something's going to stick. And where, it's truthful, because we've worked with you on a few cases before, and just observing, dude, it's like I'm 9 feet tall and bulletproof. Anything that's going to try to get through is going to get screwed anyway.
Fuck you, and fuck your opinion. I don't like your face. Go on.
Well, I mean, it is something that I do, and I now the drawback to that is that when I go on a nice, simple investigation, where I'm just going to get the Ross Opera House girl to give me an EVP, I have to be careful not to go in with that 9 foot tall, you know, and yes, people, I'll say it, scare the ghost away. And I don't know if it so much scares them away, but I do think that if you go in with the wrong attitude, ghosts are like, well, I'm not messing with this dude. He doesn't want to be messed with. So why should I give him the time of day?
Absolutely. I mean, we've got certain members of the team who we've had to counsel on that. And it's honestly the way it works. And it's just basic science.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your aura is basically the static that your body produces. That's the reason why you can have an aura photo. You go out, you have you a smoke, you eat you a sandwich, you come back 20 minutes later, you take another one, it's going to be different. It's because your mindset has changed. So, you know, we've had to actually explain this, and I can't feel anything, I don't understand.
Well, why is it that spirits don't ever come around me when we're doing our thing? And it's like, dude, you project this thing that you're 9 foot tall and bulletproof. You know, there's nothing that's going to try to get anywhere near that. Dial it back to about you're 6 foot tall and you have a Kevlar vest on.
Well, I like that. One thing I do if I'm going on a communicative investigation is that's one thing I meditate, is to make myself inviting. Not vulnerable, but
Right.
inviting. Let's
Right.
close up the show now, and we don't have to end right at on the hour because now we can go all night. But something you touched on. What are your advice to paranormal investigators? That is one of that's a common topic. Me, Chris Sutton and myself did a seminar on it last year about spiritual protection. And of course, now my own personal protection, with except for a few rules, is really hard to transfer to someone else. To tell you, be 9 foot tall and puff your chest out, and and swing your nuts and all this stuff.
Right.
Swing your nuts. One thing that go into an investigation with respect. That is
no
big,
fear.
No fear.
Healthy respect, but no fear. And you find that a lot. You get a lot of people that go into paranormal investigations, and you've got two types of investigators. You've got the ones that are honestly like the three of us. You stay in your fucking neutral corner, and I won't have to hit you in the face. That's the three of us. And then you have the ones that are like, holy shit, I heard a noise! And then they wonder why they go home with attachments, or they wonder why, their evidence is corrupted and things like that. And it's like, look, it's because you were fearing the situation. You weren't taking control of the situation. If you have a healthy respect for whatever is there, meaning you know what it is to a certain degree, you know what it's capable of to a certain degree, and you know where to stay on that boundary line, then you can get some amazing evidence and not take it home with you.
We did it was like last year, we did the ghost walk with Ghost Hunt Weekends and the Ghost Brothers, and we were paying patrons for this one.
Yeah.
We weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
We were just kind of seeing what was up because we were interested. We wanted to see the Carnegie Building over in Lexington, and
Excuse me.
we saw the two different approaches.
Yeah.
The ones that are 9 foot tall and bulletproof, but then we saw the empathetic but healthy respect, and the amount of evidence, actual evidence that they got was astounding. So
Now I'm gonna take a little side bar here. You
Okay.
brought up empathetic, and I'm gonna talk about empaths for a minute.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Because while we're on the topic of how to protect yourself, now we
Yes.
already established early in the show the absolute worst thing you can do, from anybody's standpoint, is to walk in and say, "Use my energy."
Oh, absolutely.
I absolutely believe with all my heart that you don't offer yourself to them. But now here's why people do it. Two types of people, maybe three. There are people that have never had that paranormal experience, and they want it so bad, so they really reach out. But now those I almost understand, but the ones that really scare me are the ones that are, well, usually they'll call themselves empaths, but they're I want to say untrained psychics.
Okay.
And they will go in, and the one thing that, other than the thing we just said, but it's along similar lines. I hate seeing people channel. Now, I'm sorry, I don't know if you all ever do it, but that is, it makes my ass itch when I see when I see someone go in and release theirself to a spirit. Now, there are very talented mediums that can get away with it, but when I see somebody that is, just what I would call a budding psychic do that, it really scares me.
That would be one of either, if we had somebody like that on our team going into something like that and they started to do it, that would be a pull to the side and giving firm talking to.
That's something we don't agree with at all.
Now, me personally, I have channeled, but it's in a very controlled situation. I am still myself. I communicate myself. This is what they are saying. This is what is going on. This is this. This is that. as opposed to
Becoming submissive.
they take over, because no, I don't deal with that.
See, I don't even like the process of transferring messages, because now this is from personal experience in my own psychic life. If anybody doesn't want to just call BS on it, but we were talking to a tourist ghost. In other words, it was a haunted location that charges you to investigate, and I've got a very good rapport with one of them, and we were trying to get how she passed away. And even with this ghost, that as far as ghosts go, I trust this ghost. But as soon as I felt her emotions from an inside out, in other words, I wasn't just saying, oh, she's sad. It was I started getting sad. I shut that hard candy shell down just as tight as I could. I said, no, that's not mine. And so, in other words, I won't go that far. But I see so many people do it, and that is something that, like I said, it scares me. I've actually thought about writing a book about the end of the world, Armageddon, and they're the ones that freaking caused it. In other words,
it's the biggest problem, and this is. I've actually written, articles and different things on empathy before, and it's one of those hot button topics with me. It's understanding what is true empathy and what you want to feel for that person. If it's coming just from you, then it's bullshit. It is your feelings, it's your anxiety, it's your issue. When you are actually empathetically communicating with somebody
or something,
it's going to be more of a reactionary thing like what you had. You see a lot of these people say, and I am putting that this way for a reason, you see a lot of these people who say that they're channeling. They're not channeling. What they're doing is they're pushing their emotional state onto the situation. And it's like, quit fucking bullshitting, That's not real channeling. You're not creating a connection. You're forcing a connection, which makes it automatically bullshit and causes a lot of static. You can actually wind up having situations where you get body jumped that way. And then you have to call in people like us to take care of it. Literally, that's been a case of ours. It's like, God, why? Why? Why?
There's really a good medium will use, and most mediums have the ability to quote unquote channel. A good medium will say, show me.
They will act as an intermediary. That's the whole reason why they're called a medium. They act as an intermediary. They are the mediator for a conversation.
They're the translator at the courthouse. They're and that's the big thing. A good medium will always say, show me. They won't say, come here and let me experience. No, it's not about the experience. They will say, show me.
Or tell me.
Or tell me.
Or, something. They ask for a specific response in a specific way. And then say, okay, I understand, and cut it off. This is what the person said. This is what the person's going through. They are no longer connected to said spirit.
By that point.
Okay, everybody, we're at the end of the show. We're going to call it a night. We've been talking tonight with the boys from Spirit Mechanics, of course, about attachments. Now, once again, just to kind of cover the commercial a little bit, Mystical Fair Lexington coming up in 2 weeks, correct? Last weekend of February.
Yep.
And they will be there during the weekend if you want to go in. Let's get a good plug in. Tell the people what all kinds of stuff you do back in your little cubicle.
And it is.
They put us in our box.
We're in a box behind a closed door. We're the fair's dirty little secret.
Oh my gosh, that stupid song. A lot of the times we do a lot of counseling. We do some education when it comes to paranormal investigators, trying to help them to understand ways that they can protect themselves. Some tips that we've employed as sensitives in order to get good evidence. A lot of the time we do a lot of consultations on there's something in my house. So they'll bring us evidence to the fair on, like their phone or something like that, and we'll watch it. And there's a lot of that goes on there. We do attachment removals at the fair, but on the majority of the time, we do a lot of counseling and a lot of
flow work. So working with chakra systems, working with the aura itself, past life regressions, soul fragment retrievals, things of that nature. We usually do seminars every month.
Yeah, we do a seminar just about every month. Actually, our recurring seminar for the last 3 or 4 months has been the unwelcome visitor, which is on about attachments and different types of attachments. I think we're going to probably be continuing that one. We're doing the 5th installment of that this time. And we do broadcast that on our Facebook as we do it. We're not going to do it to an empty room, because there has been some times when there's nobody at the fair and there's nobody in the room. So, but we do broadcast it if we do have people that are there that are interested in wanting to learn and everything like that. So if you want to catch us, we're at facebook.com/spiritmechanics.
Spelled with an X instead of a CS.
Yep.
We also have a class if you're in the Lexington area or feel like traveling to meet our dumbasses. We actually have a class coming up March 9th.
We were doing the basics in the introduction into some flow work. If everybody there is advanced past that point, we'll go beyond that. We'll go to some more advanced techniques and things like that we use, and some tips and tricks. And this one is actually sponsored by
Robert Rigby.
Yeah. So this is free to the public. This is something that is already paid for, ready to rock. So if you all want to come out and join us in our class, when's the date, Steve?
March 9th.
March 9th.
March 9th, and it's from 1 to 4.
Yep.
So it's a 3-hour workshop, basically.
Yeah.
So everybody, find them on Facebook, Spirit Mechanics, MECHANIX. Thanks everybody for watching Body and Spirit, brought to you by Blue Leaf Naturals.